Our conversation with candidates for town council continues. Here's Warren County Report's Roger Bianchini.
The town manager barely survived an ouster move, with Mayor Tewalt casting the decisive vote in a 4-3 margin to keep Mr. Graham. What is your perception of the performance of the town manager, and would you vote to keep or sack him if you were on council and the issue was revisited?
Okay. Based on what I do know from recently, let's go with the past, okay? Future, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. Well, I've seen here, people have a lot of disagreements with him. I can understand why the issue was brought up. I thought it should never be made public, should be kept behind the scenes. Was it a fireable offense? Well, I've understood so far based on what the facts I've had. I don't think it has. Now, in my dealings with Mr. Graham, he's been upfront and honest with about a lot of facts around town, of what a lot of issues are. He tries to tell me both sides of the story, which I really do appreciate, because I don't like to be left out in the open on any issue. If someone doesn't tell me something and keeps it from me, I mean, that really hurts my decision or what needs to be done.
So your personal dealings have been positive?
Yeah, very positive, very, very positive.
The town manager barely survived an ouster move recently, with Mayor Tewalt casting the decisive vote in a 4-3 margin to keep Mr. Graham. What is your perception of the performance of the town manager, and could you explain how you voted and why?
The town manager, when he was initially hired, there was a lot of skepticism about hiring someone from outside of, I guess, a government foray. Someone from the private sector to come in and lead a government type of business, so to speak. But again, it is a business. It's just a different realm of business. Over the past 3 years that he's been here, I think he's proven himself, but anyone is going to have, I guess, a questionable performance level. You're not going to make everyone happy. Some of your bosses, when you work for, whether it be in a role as an elected official, a council position, some of your constituents may look and say, well, I don't support that person at all. You may have other people who are fully standing behind you. I think it's that way with an administrator of government as well, that you're going to have some people who are very pleased with your performance, others that aren't. And beyond that, I think that there are probably issues of, well, I don't like this person because of this reason or that reason. It may have nothing to do with a performance-based decision. Being a member of council, being a member of the community, you hear things, you have to, I guess, justify certain things. But the town has had a lot of turnover in its department heads and in its leadership roles, as not only within the council and the mayorship, but also in our town manager. And I think that we need to take a look at what the county has done. And with Doug Stanley, who's been in the position for quite a long time, Doug Stanley has people who like him, he has people who don't like him. You're in the press, you've heard people who've ragged on him and people who have praised him. I think Mike Graham is in the same situation, but Mike's been here a lot less time. The other downfall that I think Mike has is when Doug came to the community, he started off in a lower position and worked his way up. Whereas Mike was tapped from outside of the community, even though he had local roots here, he didn't work his way up to his position, whereas some of his predecessors had. But I think that we need to try and keep a consistency going. If his bosses, which is the council, have a problem with him, I think that that's a situation where you need to sit down, you need to communicate in your business field. If you have a problem with an employee, me as a boss, if I have a problem with my employee, I have to sit down and talk with them and try and rectify the problem. If I just turn around and fire them, it's not going to make them a better person. And in the same way in your household, if you have a problem child, as a parent, you can't just go and ground your child or discipline your child. You need to let them know why you're doing that. And I think within our council, at times, we don't always have the open communication that we should. You have a lot of different mindsets and opinions, and we need to communicate better, and we need to realize that we're all working towards the same goal. And sometimes what seems like what may be an easy solution to a problem can actually make the problem worse and just snowball the effect. We had a public meeting. A lot of people came out and spoke in support of Mr. Graham. A lot of them made valid points. It did come out to a 3-3 tie, with the mayor casting the deciding vote and a 4-3 vote to keep the town manager. I chose to keep the town manager because, again, I think that if we had chosen to get rid of him at that point, we could have compounded the problems we have. We were getting ready to enter into a new budget cycle. We had the solar farm on the plate. We had rezonings within the community. We have a lot of things going on that I believe that it was the wrong time to make a drastic decision to change your leadership at the very top at that time, and we could have made problems worse for the town.
And we've also touched base on Mr. Graham's role as town manager here, and there was a move to oust him several months ago. You came down on the side of keeping him. It was a 4-3 vote. The mayor broke a tie. You've pointed out you thought that bringing somebody from the private sector in outside of the municipal box has worked out well. Would you care to elaborate any more on that?
Well, I would. I mean, there was always a danger. We knew that there was a potential danger bringing somebody that wasn't homegrown in the sense of coming through the public administration mill, I guess. We knew there was a danger, and I think one of the issues that's faced Mike is when he was with a private company, his board of directors, whether they liked each other or not, or even like Mike, gave him one mandate, and that was to make money for them. Make money for them, make money for the shareholders, and produce a product that was efficient and the employees were treated well. That was his mandate. Personalities be damned, it didn't matter. When he came to work for us, we have 6, 7 independently elected people. We all have our own, perhaps personal agendas, political agendas. Sometimes personalities do get in the way. There's not the almighty dollar that's focusing our attention completely. And I think that has taken Mike a little bit of transition because he's now having to answer to 7 individuals where when he was in the private sector, yes, there might have been 10 or 15 members of the board of directors, but they had one mission. They had one thing to do, and that was to make money. And it didn't matter if he as long as he was ethical, it didn't matter how else he did that, as long as he provided them, the shareholders, a bottom line profit. And we don't operate that way. And I think that was a transition, and that is an adjustment that he's still going through because he did his whole career of, 30 years in the private sector where that was his mandate. And he's been with us for 4 years with a completely different mandate. And there's a mindset that changes. And that was one of the warnings we got when we were bringing somebody in from the private sector into the public sector, that we don't do things like we do in the private sector and the public sector. Well, my response was maybe that's the problem, is that perhaps we should be looking to the private sector because private companies, they're inefficient, don't survive. They go out of business, or they bring in somebody like Mike who makes them efficient and thins them out, where we needed to do the same thing, and we didn't have the market to push us that way, so we need to bring somebody that kind of forces us that way.
And if some people have said the town is basically a $35 million company.
Mm-hmm. And we are in the sense that at least when you look at the enterprise funds, the electric department, the water and sewer, and the trash, those are companies. Now, they're not for-profit companies, but we produce a product, we charge for that product, and it so happens that our shareholders are the town people, which are the users, so we don't necessarily pay a dividend. It's the dividend in the sense of not having your fee go up. In the town itself, there's no real market force to push it forward, but you're right. I mean, it's a $10 million, just the general fund itself is a $10 million business where we don't produce anything of value that you can assign a dollar number to. I mean, it's the police department, the roads, the planning, the finance. It's hard to put a number that's what's the police department worth, what's their value to humans.
The measurement is the happiness of the community as a whole.
And it's hard to put a dollar figure on that.
Yes, it is.